In Chicago, Labor Day protests take on an anti-Trump tone as the city braces for a federal immigration crackdown expected to begin in the coming days.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago.
Now, that is Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Over the weekend, he signed an executive order affirming local control of the city's police and instructing them not to cooperate with federal officials on law enforcement or immigration matters. Multiple sources familiar with the planning of this operation tell CNN it's expected to begin by Friday, and the National Guard troops could be involved. And as that happens, a separate immigration fight is playing out in the nation's courts. On Sunday, a federal judge temporarily blocked the government from sending scores of unaccompanied children back to Guatemala. This order came as some were already on board planes preparing to take off. Lawyers for some of the children say that they could face abuse if returned, while the Trump administration argues that this is being done in coordination with the Guatemalan government to reunite them with their legal guardians. My panelists here, along with CNN's Kristen Holmes at the White House and CNN's Priscilla Alvarez in our Washington bureau. Kristen, let's kick it off with you. Take us through the president's plan for Chicago.
Yeah, Pamela, we're still learning more details about this. What we have heard from the governor is that there's been no communication between the White House and any officials in Illinois. The governor said in an interview that he believed they should be coordinating with him. But one thing we're hearing from the White House is that they're saying this is all about immigration. They're trying to find the line. They're saying it's not all the things that he said about crime, President Trump has said about crime, but this is about immigration in particular. Now, this is what we know is being planned for this Chicago operation, that the preparations are underway, and that includes potentially sending armored vehicles in the coming days, that ICE, Border Protection, and a surge of federal agents is expected by Friday, and the National Guard is going to be on standby. Now, the reason I point out that White House officials are trying to make this distinction between what we've seen in Washington, D.C. and what we are going to see in Chicago is likely because of the fact that there are rules that the federal and laws that the federal government has to abide by when they are dealing with a state, unlike when they are dealing with D.C. and home rule. Now, this is what we heard the Department of Homeland Security secretary say over the weekend.
We've already had ongoing operations with ICE in Chicago and throughout Illinois and other states, making sure that we're upholding our laws. But we do intend to add more resources to those operations. We will continue to go after the worst of the worst across the country, like President Trump has told us to do.
So clearly they're trying to make this just about immigration, saying they are expanding on programs they already had in place, not about the fact that they were coming in here and dealing with crime, which of course is not what we're hearing from President Trump, who has been posting over the weekend, last several days, all about the crime rate in Chicago, not necessarily tying it to immigration. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, the administration, federal government's going to have to jump through a lot of hoops. They're going to face a lot more pushback with these states as they try to expand what they're doing in Washington, D.C. than they did here in the district.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. In the district, they have more authorities than in these other states. Priscilla, to bring you on another immigration issue, you have been covering the administration's plan to repatriate hundreds of Guatemalan children. Tell us what is behind this and the federal judge's decision to block their removal.
Pamela, the Trump administration has been fixated on unaccompanied migrant children for months now. They say that the Biden administration mishandled these children and their cases, and it is something that they have issued multiple policies on. But this move to repatriate them to Guatemala is unprecedented, according to my sources. What we know from today is that the Justice Department confirmed that 74 children who were placed on planes yesterday to be sent back to Guatemala have been returned to U.S. custody as these proceedings are ongoing. We also heard from the Guatemalan president, who said that his country is prepared to receive these minors on a weekly basis as soon as a legal dispute here in the United States is resolved. But to rewind here, what happened was late Saturday into the early morning hours of Sunday, attorneys who represent these children were notified that their clients were going to be repatriated to Guatemala. Meanwhile, the shelters where these kids are being taken care of were told to prepare the children for discharge within a matter of hours, collecting their personal belongings, any medications that they were on, as well as snacks for the flight. Now, all of this caused alarm among attorneys who were blindsided that their clients were going to be returned because they are still in immigration proceedings in the United States. The children we're talking about here, Pamela, are children who arrived to the United States southern border alone. They are waiting in custody to be reunited with U.S.-based family members, where they continue through these proceedings to determine if they have protection in the United States. So a lawsuit was filed early on Sunday. In fact, the federal judge said herself during proceedings yesterday that she was awoken at 2:30 in the morning as all of this was ongoing, and she ultimately blocked their removal for now. Now, the Trump administration is pushing back, saying that this is being done in coordination with the Guatemalan government and that they are being reunited with their parent or legal guardian in country. The reason, however, this is so complicated is because for some of these kids, being returned home isn't the best option for them because that is what they were fleeing. In fact, in the lawsuit, a 10-year-old says that her mother is deceased and she was fleeing abuse and neglect from family members at home in Guatemala. And I'll finally note that there are cases where children do choose to go back to their country of origin. But even in those cases, Pamela, they have to go before an immigration judge so that the judge can unpack why that is and to determine whether they truly are better off in their country of origin than in the United States. So this is a vulnerable population, one the administration is focused on. And now we'll have to wait to see what happens in proceedings in the days to come.
All right, a lot of information there. Priscilla Alvarez, Kristen Holmes, thank you so much. And my panel joins me now in the arena. CNN contributor and New York Times journalist and podcast host Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN political commentator Jonah Goldberg, Democratic strategist Adrian Elrod, and CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings. Great to have you all with me on this Labor Day. Thanks for coming in on the holiday. So, Jonah, I want to start with you on what Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said yesterday in his latest back and forth over the president's plans. Let's listen.
It's clear that in secret they're planning this, well, it's an invasion with U.S. troops if they in fact do that. The other thing is, they ought to be coordinating with local law enforcement, but they don't want to do that either. And I must say it's disruptive, it's dangerous, it tends to inflame passions on the ground when they don't let us know what their plans are and when we can't coordinate with them.
His use of the word invasion, is that how you see it?
Invasion, no. Look, I don't like these National Guard deployments. I think that they should come with an invitation from the governor, as is historically the case. In the case of D.C., it's a little more complicated because it's within the president's power to do it here. But what's going on in Chicago is very bad in terms of crime. It's not a crisis, and I think that the problem is it's one of these sort of Baptist and bootlegger problems where you have this is great for Pritzker politically, and it's great for Trump politically to argue about crime, to argue about invasion, and all these kinds of things. I just don't think it's a wise public policy.
You were smirking when you were listening to him.
Well, look, surging federal agents, ICE, CPB, to a state that has over 500,000 illegal immigrants in it, many of them live in Chicago. I mean, the federal government is going to enforce federal law. I hear Pritzker complaining that there's no coordination, but I also heard the mayor say he's ordered the police department not to cooperate with federal officials on this immigration crackdown. So how are you supposed to cooperate if the mayor is ordering his own police force not to do so? The fact is you have people in this country illegally. The president has promised since he was running his campaign last year that he planned to crack down on illegal immigration. He's sending federal agents to Illinois to do that. I'm not entirely certain why everybody is so angry or surprised about this. I mean, we're here enforcing federal immigration law in a city that we can argue about whether it's a crisis or not, but there were 53 shootings there over the weekend. It's pretty violent.
We should also be clear. They were talking about sending the National Guard in long before they were talking about this ICE operation. These two things have now become merged.
He's saying they're on standby.
About to say this. What is it? What is happening here in Chicago? First, it's about crime, if you listen to Trump. Now, apparently, it's about immigration enforcement. I mean, when you are talking about, no wonder people are confused, no wonder people are alarmed, because if it is not clear what the purpose of these kinds of operations are, people are going to assume the worst. I mean, here in D.C., apparently it's about crime, except most of what we've seen has been immigration enforcement. Now you're going to move to a U.S. city, Chicago, where apparently it is about immigration enforcement if it's the president, but it's not. It's about crime. Like, what are we talking about?
Aren't
it
they
makes
one and
no
the same?
sense.
If you're in the country
no,
illegally,
people,
you're a criminal.
No, that's not the same thing. And you know
Why?
That's, you know,
if
it's
you're-
a
if you're
civil
breaking-
offense if you cross the border
Oh my
illegally.
gosh! I
No,
can't
but wait
believe
a
we're gonna have
second.
this
You are
fight
trying
again.
to make.
But if you're here breaking U.S. immigration law, why should
You
we
are
be
trying to
deported?
make. You are trying to say that anyone in this country illegally is
Should
some
be
kind of
deported.
murder or killer.
No.
Crime is a different thing. Shootings, muggings, the things the president talks about are different than immigration enforcement. Those are two different things. They're dealt with by different groups of law enforcement. They are two different things. To conflate them is disingenuous.